On the night Carlos Ghosn disappeared from Japan, he was not supposed to be anywhere near an airport. He was one of the most watched men in the country, a former titan of the global car industry, a man who had once controlled Nissan, Renault, and Mitsubishi, a man who had sat inside boardrooms where billion-dollar decisions were made with a signature, a handshake, and a quiet nod across polished tables. But by late December 2019, Carlos Ghosn was no longer moving like a CEO. He was moving like a fugitive. He had been arrested in Japan. He had spent more than 100 days in detention. He was out on bail under strict conditions. He was supposed to remain in Tokyo. His home was under surveillance. His movements were restricted. His passport was supposed to be controlled. And still, somehow he vanished. No dramatic airport chase, no public confrontation, no final press conference, just a disappearance. Then, the story became almost impossible to believe. According to court proceedings and later reporting, Ghosn was hidden inside a large box and smuggled onto a private jet. The plane left Japan. It flew to Turkey. Then another aircraft carried him to Lebanon. By the time Japan realized what had happened, the man who had once been called the savior of Nissan was already gone. In Beirut, Ghosn appeared again, not in handcuffs, not in a courtroom, but in front of cameras. And his message was simple. He said he had not escaped justice. He said he had escaped injustice. That was the beginning of one of the strangest corporate scandals of the 21st century, because this was not just a story about an escape. It was a story about power, about a car empire held together by one man, about money that was allegedly hidden from investors, about a corporate alliance that was already cracking beneath the surface, and about a question that still hangs over the entire case. Was Carlos Ghosn a powerful executive finally exposed, or was he destroyed by the empire he helped build? To understand why one of the most famous businessmen in the world ended up inside a box on a private jet, you have to go back to the moment before everything fell apart, before the arrests, before the allegations, before the escape. Back to when Carlos Ghosn was not running from Nissan, he was saving it. Carlos Ghosn did not begin as a fugitive. For years, he was something closer to a business legend. He was born in Brazil, raised partly in Lebanon, educated in France, and built his career across continents. He was not the typical Japanese executive. He was not raised inside Nissan. He did not spend decades climbing through the company's internal hierarchy. He arrived from the outside, and that was exactly why people believed he could do what insiders could. Not before Nissan, Ghosn had made his name at Michelin and Renault. At Renault, he became known for cutting costs with almost surgical precision. He was not sentimental about factories. He was not sentimental about old habits. He looked at a company like a machine. If one part was broken, he removed it. If one part was slowing the business down, he forced it to move. That reputation followed him. Some admired him, some feared him, and by 1999, Nissan needed someone exactly like that. The company was drowning. It had suffered years of losses, its debt was heavy, its culture was slow, and inside Japan, Nissan was no small business. This was one of the country's great industrial names, a car company tied to national pride, employment, suppliers, factories, and decades of corporate tradition. But pride could not pay the debt, and tradition could not stop the bleeding, so Renault stepped in. The French automaker bought a major stake in Nissan, and Carlos Ghosn was sent to Japan with a mission that sounded almost impossible. Turn Nissan around fast. He entered a world where foreign executives were rare, where public failure carried deep shame, and where closing factories was not just a business decision, it was a cultural shock. Then Ghosn did what most Japanese executives had avoided. He announced the Nissan Revival Plan. The plan was brutal. 21,000 jobs would be cut, factories would be closed, supplier relationships that had existed for years would be broken or reshaped. Debt had to fall, profitability had to return, and Nissan had to prove it could survive. To many people, it looked ruthless. To others, it looked necessary. But the strange thing was this: it worked. Nissan returned to profit faster than expected. The debt was reduced. The company's image changed, and Carlos Ghosn became something almost unheard of. For a foreign executive in Japan, he became famous, not just respected in boardrooms. Famous. His story was turned into manga. His face became recognizable. He was praised as the man who did not just manage Nissan, but revived it. And that created the first great irony of the story. The same power that made Ghosn look like Nissan's savior would later make him look dangerous. Because when one man becomes the symbol of a company's survival, the company begins to depend on him, then fear him, then wonder what happens if he refuses to leave. After Nissan recovered, Carlos Ghosn did not fade quietly into corporate history. He climbed higher. In 2000, he became CEO of Nissan. In 2005, he became president and CEO of Renault while still leading Nissan. Then Mitsubishi joined the alliance after Nissan took a controlling stake in the company. Suddenly, Ghosn was sitting above three automakers: Nissan, Renault, Mitsubishi. Three flags, three cultures, three histories, one man at the center. On paper, it looked like a masterpiece of global business strategy. Renault had rescued Nissan. Nissan had become profitable again. Mitsubishi brought even more scale. Together, the alliance sold millions of vehicles a year and competed with the giants of the global auto industry. But beneath that, success was a structure full of tension. Renault owned a large voting stake in Nissan. Nissan owned a stake in Renault. But without the same voting power, that meant the relationship was not equal. And over time, that became harder to ignore. Because Nissan was no longer the weak company. Renault had rescued in 1999. Nissan had recovered. Nissan had grown. Nissan was generating serious profit, and inside Japan, some people began to ask a quiet but dangerous question. Why should a revived Nissan still be controlled through Renault? This was not just about cars. It was about power. It was about national pride. It was about who controlled the future of one of Japan's most important companies. Ghosn believed the alliance had to become stronger, more integrated, harder to break apart. But for people inside Nissan, who feared losing control to Renault, deeper integration could feel like a takeover in slow motion. That is where the story begins to change. Because Carlos Ghosn was no longer just the man who saved Nissan. He was the man who might decide its future. And in corporate life, being useful makes you valuable, but being too powerful makes you a target.